He is a guy that works for the Pac-12 network with me for many years, but he's been somebody who's lived in the Bay Area and been around the San Francisco 49ers organization and those local teams there for years. Runs a great podcast, the Ham Podcast, with John Middlecoffin himself. My friend, Guy Haberman, welcome to the show. What's up, Guy?
Leaf, it's here.
It's here. It's here. That's the best way to put it. Guy and I have been talking about the NFL draft for months and months and months because the Pac-12 conference, of course, didn't play a lot of football, and here we're at. So you've been in the mix right there, and you watched this move happen about a month ago, and there's been speculation from the moment it happened that it was Mac Jones. And they've gently seemed to shift a little bit with the addition of John Beck as Trey Lance's quarterback coach. Where do we stand, and what do we expect to happen tonight?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like most people I think know, Mac Jones is what a lot of people expect. My expectation, or my prediction a few weeks ago was Trey Lance, and there's a lot of reasons not to think that it's going to be Trey Lance. There's a lot of reasons not to think it's going to be Justin Fields. I'm still open-minded tonight that it's not going to be Mac Jones. I've gone this long without feeling like I definitely know, so why change now? But I do think Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch spoke to the media on Monday, and it was the second time they've spoken since they did the trade. They also spoke a couple days. Remember, they did the trade on a Friday. They spoke the following Monday or Tuesday. And I think both times they've talked, if we wait till tonight, see who they pick, and then go back and watch those press conferences, I think regardless of who the pick is tonight, we'll be able to find things in those press conferences that we think were breadcrumbs to hint at who they ultimately take. But right now, not knowing, I think Kyle Shanahan has left the most breadcrumbs for Mac Jones. One thing he has said repeatedly in both press conferences that he gave is that, yes, of course you want Patrick Mahomes. He said on Monday, yes, ideally you'd have Drew Brees' passing pocket ability and Lamar Jackson's legs. But when he says that, he usually follows up with some version of, but ultimately the best guys would have been the best guys in any era. Patrick Mahomes and Drew Brees, as different as they are great now, and they would have both been great 40 years ago, and they'll both be great, that version of a player, 40 years from now. And what he's saying when he says those things is, I know what everybody tells me, which is that the league is trending to play quarterback a certain way with athletic quarterbacks. But ultimately, I'm not going to draft an athletic quarterback if I don't think he's as good as the guy that is less athletic than him. So, yeah, of course I love Mahomes. He has spoke glowingly about Josh Allen last year before they played the Bills. But I'm not going to draft that guy in place because you tell me that's what the trend is. No, the trend is the best quarterbacks are the best quarterbacks. So my question is he saying that to make us think that he's drafting Mac Jones, or is he saying that because they're trying to get out ahead of what's been – I can't think of a draft pick this high that everyone has had such a fan base has had a negative opinion of so quickly. And it's really, I feel, if it is Mac Jones, I feel badly that Mac Jones is walking into that because he'll have to overcome that. But that's where it stands. I think Kyle Shanahan has left enough breadcrumbs on Mac Jones. The question is he doing it to mislead or is he doing it to prepare?
We're talking with Guy Haberman, Pac-12 network announcer, host of the Haberman and Middlecoff podcast there in the local Bay Area. That then leads to the Atlanta Falcons. And I think what hinges on the rest of the draft and how the other quarterbacks fall in line. If they don't trade out of that spot with somebody who needs a quarterback, or if they take the likes of Kyle Pitts, well, quarterbacks could fall further and further down. Where do the Atlanta Falcons go if they've decided that Matt Ryan's the guy? Do they stick with an offensive player, or do you think they trade out of there to put a team who needs a quarterback to move up?
This is what makes the third pick so fascinating, right? Is like, if the Niners do take Mac Jones, does somebody love Justin Fields enough to come up and take him? Do the Falcons like him enough to take him? If it were me, I would not take a quarterback there. If I were them, I would either move back or take Kyle Pitts. I think new GM, new head coach. I don't want to make all my decisions based on my job security, but unless you love the quarterback, why start your clock right now if you're those guys, if he's not going to start over Matt Ryan? And I think that's the interesting part for the Niners, too, is like Mac Jones and Justin Fields are guys that play right away. Trey Lance, at least, is viewed as a guy that doesn't play right away. But I do think the 49ers want to trade Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think they want to play with Jimmy Garoppolo this year. I think they'd rather play with whoever they draft. And I think it makes sense for them to trade him as well. Like, just to have that dynamic is not conducive to your new, franchise quarterback becoming the leader of a locker room. And that's the one part I've had a hard time getting by when I talk about Lance, is that he's viewed more as a developmental prospect. But look, Shanahan, and this is not fair to RG3, what I'm about to say, because RG3 was a much better prospect coming out than Trey Lance, but Kyle Shanahan won a bunch of games, won 10 games. I think 9 with RG3 as the starter his rookie year, and he was the offensive rookie of the year. So I think even if it's Lance, he can kind of maneuver. If you're the Falcons, to me, it's kind of weird unless it's Lance. I know there's all the history with Justin Fields in the state of Georgia, but if I were them, I don't think they would take a quarterback, just given the way most teams draft, particularly in their first years. New head coach, new GM, that would be my guess there.
All righty. Well, let's get you out of here with a little of our weekly Pac-12 talk. All right. The first player probably picked out of the Pac-12 is going to be Penei Sewell. He's considered one of the best offensive linemen to come out of college for some time. Yet, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be sitting there at 5 with every opportunity to draft somebody to protect their franchise quarterback, Joe Burrow, who they weren't able to do with what they weren't able to do a year ago. Yet, they are still enamored by the possibility of that speedster, Adonis of a wide receiver, and Jamar Chase reuniting him with Joe Burrow. What do you think the Bengals should do? What do you think they do?
I think they should draft Penei Sewell. I think we just saw the Chiefs traded a late first rounder for a starting tackle. It is Orlando Brown. We see how difficult the Niners had to go to the top of the market to re-sign Trent Williams. It is so hard to find that guy. Last year, the first 2 rounds of wide receivers drafted had a hit rate of like 90. Besides Jalen Reagor and Henry Ruggs, every first and second round receiver basically hit based on their value of where they were drafted. I mean, it was incredible what a good receiver draft it was last year. Now, I don't think this draft has the depth of receiver, but it does at the top mirror last year's draft. I think the tackles are hard to find. I think you draft a tackle. Every Bengals beat writer I hear and listen, I read and hear talk about this thinks they're going to take Kyle Pitts, which ultimately I think is good for Penei. I talked to Penei yesterday. He was very mum on the teams that like him. I think there are teams that have told him they like him, and he wants to go to those teams, but some things need to happen for him to get there. And I don't know, Miami might be one at 6, but to me the Chargers at 13 would make a ton of sense if somehow they could get up to get him. And to me, that feels like Detroit's spot. Detroit has a 1 next year. They have 2 1s next year. They have 2 1s the next year. Follow Miami's blueprint, acquire picks, move back. So I think they go Chase at 5. If Penei ends up in Miami, that would make sense. But I also think if he doesn't go to Miami at 6, then the Chargers would make sense for Penei Sewell if they could move up.
Well, that'd be nice to reunite quarterback and offensive tackle.
You would root for him to go to the Chargers, Leaf?
Of course I would. You know what? I just need the Los Angeles Chargers to win a Super Bowl and that quarterback to be an MVP or something like that. And maybe then I'm not talked about as much as maybe that's the only reason. It's always about me. You spent too much time with me over the last 3 years to know anything different. Guy Haberman,
that's why
everybody.
I brought it back to you at the end.
Yeah, Guy Haberman, everybody from the Pac-12 Network, my boy. Check him out, the Haberman and Middlecalf podcast. You can check him out on Twitter and Instagram at Guy Haberman. Thanks for joining us, bud.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.